Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2. In this week's class, we will be looking at managerial decision making. As you all know, your interactive lecture slides are on Canvas. There are some activities or the questions that you can try as well. Okay, you can find the content of this lecture in your textbook, and we really encourage you to read the materials before you come into the class as well. The objectives of this week class is to understand what managerial decision making is and to see how managers make decisions, how difficult they are, how challenging they are, and what kind of processes or the steps that managers are taking when they're making decisions, and also to understand group decision making, what are the pros and cons of making decisions in group. These are some of the things that we are going to cover in the class today. Okay, pause for a moment and think about a decision that you have to make or a decision that you had to make in the past. Was it very hard? Was it an easy decision? And if it was an easy decision, what was that? Why it was easy? Have you made a similar decision before? Or is this an entirely new decision that really impact you and people around you? Those are the things that you need to think about when you're thinking about decision making, because we as individuals make decisions every day, as well as managers have to make decisions every day. Can you remember the time that you played Monopoly? Or you must be playing Monopoly currently as well. How hard or easy some of the decisions have been. Reflect on these things. As I said to you before, managers have to make decisions every day. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to, being non-managers sometimes. Because this unit looked at contemporary management principles, we will be looking at managerial decision making. And some of these concepts, some of these things that we discuss in the class today can be applied in our day-to-day life as well, individual life as well. When you are making some decisions around what subjects to take, yes, it is a decision in managing ourselves, self-management. So, as I said to you before, think about some of the decisions that you had to make, how hard, how easy, why it was hard, and why it was easy. And did someone help you in this decision making? And did you use your intuition, previous experiences in making decisions as well? Okay, from manager's point of view, as I said, managers are making decisions every day. And there are some characteristics of managerial decision making. Guys, if you think about it, you have to make decisions when there are options available. Right? When there are no options, you don't have to decide. You just have, because you don't have options. You don't have anything to weigh up. And you have to deal with problems as well. When you're dealing with problems, you have to make decisions. When you are dealing with opportunities, you have to make decisions. Which opportunity that you need to pursue to get the best benefit for your organization, for your team, right? So if you think about it, you're dealing with problems, you're dealing with opportunities, you're dealing with options. That is why you have to make decisions. And if you think about some of the characteristics of managerial decision making, they involve risks, some kind of an uncertainty, lack of structure, and conflicts. These are the contexts, or these are the characteristics of managerial decisions, which we will explore today. Lack of structure. And as we know, we just are coming out of, or came out of COVID-19 crisis. Organizations, managers at different levels across the whole world face lots of issues, problems, challenges as well. And these kind of problems really did not have a structure, and we did not have solutions. And when you're making decisions, sometimes these decisions are not routine. They don't have a clear cut answer. But some of these things, some of the decisions have very clear answers. We have made these kind of decisions before. These things are routine decision. Imagine that you're coming into the office, you have to own the computer and you have to start working, right? Those things we make these kind of decisions every day. If you have to go to work, you decide to maybe take public transport or maybe drive by yourself, you make these routine decisions and you have clear cut answers as well. But some of the managerial problems or the opportunities that managers are working with do not have these kind of clear cut answers because they're not structured. And when you have very clear opportunities, clear problems to deal with, you have your programmed decisions. You know what sort of a decision to make. It's kind of programmed, right? Program decisions are decisions encountered and made before, so you are familiar. Having objectively correct answers, right? It is like 1 plus 1, the answer is 2. So objectively correct answers, maybe subjectively not right, but objectively correct answers. And you can solve these things by using simple rules, policies, procedures, and etc. So that is why organizations do have policies, procedures, so to deal with program decisions. But we know the problems that managers are dealing with are not routine all the time. They lack structure. They're novel. They're complex. Managers have to think deep. There's no textbook answers for these kind of problems or opportunities, right? So managers have to apply some other techniques to deal with non-programmed decisions. They're novel, they're complex, and they don't have predefined or textbook answers for these things. Let's look at some of the examples for these programmed and non-programmed decisions. So when you have a structured question or a problem, you can apply a programmed decision. When it is novel, when you don't know the answer, you're dealing with non-programmed decisions. Okay, I'll take one example here. There are a few different examples: company example, university example, healthcare, and government example, programmed and non-programmed decisions. So if you look at university as an example, program decision could be income formulas to determine amount of student financial aid, right? So you have some formulas, you have some policies, procedures. It is easy to work and it could be subjectively correct as well. Quite easy. Non-program decisions, which could be novel, we don't know the answer, we haven't dealt with these kind of things before. Create a design for a new engineering building, or maybe we'll say at Swinburne, we need to design a new building. So it's a new thing. So it has to be in line with existing buildings at Swinburne, and it has to be an engineering building, state of the art, what engineers are using. It has to support organizational or the Swinburne vision as well. So there are so many things that managers need to think about, and the cost, the resources, how soon that you need to finish the building. Lots of decision making points are involved as well. Okay, so I'll ask you this question. How easy or hard when you had to decide which university to study at? Was it a program decision for you, or was it a non-program decision for you, and why? Another decision condition or characteristic of managerial decision making is uncertainty. Guys, need not to say that managers and all of us are working in a very uncertain, complex environment nowadays. We don't have enough information to make decisions as well. Sometimes we make assumptions. We're trying to work with whatever the information available for us, right? So in that perspective, we have certainty sometimes when we are making decisions, sometimes uncertainty. We can make a certain decision when you have enough information available. It is the state that exists when decision makers have accurate and comprehensive information. So you have all the information, financial resources, time available. So you have lots of information to analyze data and then make correct or rational decision. So when you have enough information in a certain environment, you can make rational decision, right? But at the same time, managers are not lucky. In the real world, they are making decisions in an uncertain environment. So that is the state that exists when decision makers don't have enough information to make decisions with, right? So most of the time, when we don't have enough information, when you're in an uncertain situation, managers make conservative approach to make their decisions. Say, for an example, if it is a financial decision, if you don't have enough information, they may say, you know, invest in a long-term investment. So not rushing into purchase stocks in a very highly volatile stock market, something like that. Okay, so dealing with information that you have, but at the same time you're trying to manage these risks as well. So most of the time they're using conservative approach in financial decision making, so under volatile and uncertain conditions. So as I said, long-term investments like saving or retirement, or buy stocks at regular intervals, or investing in long-term projects rather than investing in volatile stocks or volatile conditions or markets. Another characteristics of managerial decision making is risk. So you can see risk when we don't know what will happen 100%, right? That is the state that exists when the probability of success is less than 100%. So when you don't know what is the likelihood of being successful, if you want to invest your money somewhere, so tech startup is a really good example. As you know, there are so many tech startups in the world, but not that many organizations or startups can be successful as well, because they're taking risk. They sometimes take high risks as well. So they don't know how to invest, where to invest, what are the long-term potential of this product or the services, and etc. They're taking risk, not knowing whether your project is going to be 100% successful or not. So probability is less than 100% success. And sometimes managers make decisions to introduce a 4-day week, taking a risk. The whole idea is to give some flexibility to employees to reduce burnout, thinking that there are a lot of research around that as well, thinking that they can be more productive, employees can be happier, employees can be more engaged. But maybe they didn't know whether this will work 100% or not. They're taking a risk. As we know, guys, entrepreneurs and investors, they thrive on risk. They are risk takers than average people. They try to invest their money, invest their other resources on projects that give better outcome, better profit. So they are risk takers. Good decision makers try to manage, control, and minimize risk as much as possible. They deal with risk quantitatively. So they analyze the probabilities. What will happen if I go with option A? They try to analyze data, whatever the information they have. So attach probabilities for their options. So probability for option A, probability for option B. If I invest on company A, what will happen? So trying to analyze data. If I invest on project B, what will happen? So again, try to quantitatively analyze probabilities, trying to see what's the percentage of you being successful. So managers are taking risk. They know that they're taking risk when they're working with uncertain environment with less information, but at the same time, they're trying to control their risk by managing it, but by quantitatively attaching probabilities for their options as well. The next characteristic of managerial decision making is conflicts. Making decisions, especially when you're in a volatile situation, complex situations, create conflict. And it can create conflicts within yourself, within manager himself or herself. These things are psychological conflicts. I'll give you an example. Say for an example, as a manager, I had to lay off 5 people because company is not profitable. We are not getting enough businesses, so we don't want 60 employees. We can deal with 55 employees. As a manager, I had to cut 5 employees, but it is really difficult for me to do that because it's really against my values. So managers sometimes, when you're making decisions, they face psychological conflicts within themselves. So it is not easy, especially when things are not in line with your values, not in line with the organizational values. They face conflicts as well. The next thing is conflicts between people, and I don't have to explain these things. When you're working in a team environment, these conflicts can occur as well. you know if you take your team assessment for an example, one person want to achieve a HD, but other people just want to finish the assessment with the credit. So yes, as you can imagine, conflict between people. So as a manager, you're dealing with your own conflicts, your psychological conflicts, as well as you have to get involved, resolve problems or the conflicts that are that occurs within the team members as well. So this is another thing, conflict environment. So we kind of have a somewhat understanding about characteristics of managerial decision making. As I said to you guys before, managers have to make decisions all the time. Organizations pay managers, executives to make good decisions. But unfortunately, because of the environment that we are in, it's complex, it is volatile, it is uncertain, we don't have enough time, we have lack of resources, all of these things, we cannot make rational decisions all the time. But at the same time, sometimes we make rational decisions, but still again, your decision can be wrong. It may go wrong because the context that we are in is changing, right? But at least you can comfort yourself. You can tell your manager that you followed rational steps to make decision, or when you're making decisions. This is managerial decision making phases or the process. At least you can say, I didn't make decisions by my gut feeling, but at least I follow these phases that is recommended by professionals, recommended by academic, recommended by textbooks as well. So that can give you some kind of a comfort. So and also when you're dealing with ethical dilemma, or when you are in difficult situations to make decisions, it is not a bad idea to follow these steps in decision making process, because that will help you make better decisions, right? So identify and diagnose the problem. Generate alternative solutions as much as possible depending on the time and the resources available for you. Evaluate alternatives, make choice, implement the decision, evaluate the decisions. So we're going to go through each of these steps very quickly. Guys, as I said to you before, again, you need to understand, yes, we're dealing with a problem. Problem exists and it must resolve. So you are about to make decisions. So you need to understand the context of the problem as much as possible. You need to gather information. You need to talk to people. You need to go back and revisit your last financial year information. You need to see how your customers are behaving. You need to see what's happening with your suppliers and what's happening in the international context. You need to understand what your competitors are doing, how competitors are reacting to some of the changes in the business environment as well. So, and at the same time, you need to understand and recognize there is a gap between current situation and your desired state. Say, from an example, your problem is your lower employee morale or the engagement. You've recently, through your employment survey, you've identified your employee engagement is really low, or your customer satisfaction is really low. You expect to have 40% customer satisfaction rate, but your customer satisfaction rate is 15%. So you can see there's a gap between your current and the desired state, right? Is there an opportunity that can be exploited? How can we improve customer satisfaction? How can we make your employees more engaged? Are there any options? Are we paying them better? Are we looking after our employees better? Is there any gaps? How we can fill these gaps as well? Diagnose the reasons why our employees are not happy. Why our customers are not happy? Is that because other competitors are offering better prices, competitive things, or better quality products? Or why our employees are not happy? They're not enjoying the company culture, or something's not right with the leadership, something's not right with company policies, the benefits, the pay. Are we paying them enough, or maybe average or above the market average? So why? What are the reasons? So some of the questions I've given you guys for you to think about, some of the questions that you can ask yourself when you are dealing with the problem. These kind of asking these questions from yourself as a manager will help you understand, diagnose the problem better, so you can generate appropriate solutions as well. So if your managerial problem or the opportunity, the situation that you're dealing with is quite intense, it is not a bad idea to spend more time to understand your status quo. And when you know enough about your problem, then you need to generate solutions as well, right? This is the second phase. Sometimes, guys, you have ready-made solutions. If your problem is structured, you have ready-made solutions, as we discussed before. These kind of ideas that you have seen and you have tried before. And that is why companies have organizational policies and procedures. Alternatives are quite easy. How to reimburse a claim. So you have policies and procedures. How to handle workplace compensation claim. So these kind of things, it's easy to deal with because they're structured and you have ready-made solutions. Sometimes your problem is unstructured. So in these kind of situations, you are dealing with new situations. You have to create new and creative solutions to come out of your problem as well. So you're dealing with maybe low employee morale, high employee turnover, or low customer satisfaction. You need to find good solutions how to improve employee morale. Can you do it through by introducing flexible work arrangement, 4 day a week, or maybe monetary benefits, or maybe improving company organizational culture. So identifying why there's a gap between desired outcome and the current outcome, and trying to find an appropriate solution to the problem that organization is currently facing. It's very, very important. Customer, you have very low customer retention rate, and what are the reasons for these issues as well? Is this because they're not happy with the quality or the price, or your product is not innovative enough, or maybe your competitors are offering better deals for your customers as well? So trying to find if you guys can remember, sources of competitive advantage that we looked at in week 1, innovation. Is that an area that you can tap into, or maybe the cost? So, or maybe differentiation. What are the areas that you need to work on to find new solutions as alternatives? Also remember, guys, when generating alternatives, the first one that comes to mind may not be the best solution. So try to explore more solutions as much as possible, depending on the resources available for you as a manager. The next one is evaluating alternatives. So it is sometimes you, as an organization, as a team, you brainstorm to find many solutions as possible. It doesn't matter, we will look at brainstorming a little later in this chapter as well, but try to generate many solutions as possible without disturbing. It can be very wild ideas. That's okay. Let all these ideas come in, and you can evaluate these things later and at this third phase, right? Evaluating alternatives. Which solution will be the best solution? right? Are we going to improve benefits, monetary benefits for employees, or maybe are we going to introduce 4 days a week arrangement, 4-day work week arrangement? So what is the best solution? What do employees really need to make them feel more engaged? Is that something to do with organization culture? And if that is so, how are you going to um, address that? What consequences will occur if you go with solution one or the alternative one? What will be the consequences? Can you satisfy all your employees? If not, at least the majority. What will be the consequences if some of the employees are not happy, if some of the customers are not happy? So what is your target market, for an example? And how will you measure the success? So yes, you introduce certain solutions, but how are you going to measure the success as well? That is very important to understand. It is sometimes easy to think about alternative solutions, but the cost involved, how are we going to measure? You can do so many things, but what kind of assurance that would that give you that your employees will be engaged and happy? So how are you going to measure them? You need to have clear solutions for these things as well. Always remember, guys, your plan A may not work, so that is why you need to have contingency plan as well. You always need to have contingency plans, because we are working in a very complex, very ever changing, constantly changing environment. I'll give you an example here. So, a question that I'm dealing with, problem that I'm dealing with, academics dealing with these days, with generative AI, what sort of assessments are more appropriate? Things are changing quite rapidly, right? Something is there week one, but that is not there, or some a different thing is there in week two. So having two assessment options to deal with artificial intelligence related challenges could be a better idea. And I've used some more Netflix examples here as well, how organizations use big data to analyze and then make decisions to improve customer retention, and those kind of to make those kind of decisions. Okay. When you're evaluating alternatives, these are some of the questions that you can ask. I recommend you guys to pause here rather than me going through these things. These are self-explanatory. Stop here and look at what sort of questions that you can ask when you're evaluating these things. Guys, in this complex environment, as individuals, you don't have to be a manager. As individuals, sometimes we have to make decisions, and it can be really tough sometimes. It is really good to know, or it's really good to have some strategies to deal with decision making. So pause here, see what sort of questions that we should be asking when we are in that kind of a situation. How do we evaluate? Also remember, temptation to overanalyze can lead to paralysis by analysis. And I gave you this picture again for you to think about as well. Burnout among managers, stress among managers is something that we discuss every day. It's really high. Managers are, or the employees are burnt out or burning out, as well as managers, employees are stressed. As a manager, what something that you also need to know is some decisions do not work out. You need to have the ability to let go, not attaching yourself for certain decisions. I really want to expand this company, but you can't do this. Maybe this is not the right time. So you have to have the ability to let go of these things rather than stressing yourself on these kind of decisions. So remember, some decisions do not work out. Maybe you have analyzed everything, you made the rational decisions, but it may not work out as well. That's the kind of a contemporary business environment that we are working in. Although this can surprise and frustrate you, you should have contingency plans that may work out as well. Okay, so it's important to have a contingency plan and say goodbye to your first decision or the first solution that you had, not attaching yourself too much, because that can cause you a lot of stress as well. Okay, when you're making choices, managers, or again as individuals as well, we have few options. You can either maximize or satisfies, or you can optimize. I'll give you a simple example, but you can apply these things into managerial context as well, and we'll do these kind of things in tutorial class activities. So, example for maximizing. So, when managers are making decisions, they can make rational decisions. They can analyze every single data, take a lot of time, use all the resources. You're an ideal perfect environment to make decisions, which means you can make the maximizing decision. A decision realizing the best possible outcome, greatest benefit at the lowest cost, and everybody is happy, right? You have no limitations, make the decisions to maximize. But guys, that's the ideal situation. In a real environment, managers have to make with lots of limitations as well. We are bounded by lots of limitations as managers, especially in a contemporary work environment. We don't have enough information. We don't have, things are changing. We don't have enough employees. Companies don't have enough budget to employ enough people. And purchase certain systems that you like to work with as well. So we have to work with satisfying decisions, right? Choosing an option that is acceptable. It's not the best, but it is good enough. With readily available information, you don't have a lot of information. You're dealing with whatever the information available for you. Although not necessarily the best or perfect option, you're happy with that option. It's good enough. Compare with the goal, but not against the other option. I was really hungry. I just walked into a restaurant or a cafe. I just had something because I was hungry. Because that's good enough. That satisfied my goal, and I'm not hungry anymore, right? And I didn't compare that with other restaurants or the other options that was available for me. So you're happy, you're satisfied. Sometimes as managers, when you're working with this kind of an environment, we have to make satisfying decisions as well. The next one, kind of in between these two, is optimizing decision, achieving the best possible balance among several goals, right? So you want to purchase something. As a customer, you want to purchase something. You have a limited budget, limited resources, limited time available, but you want a good quality product as well, but you have limited budget with you. So reasonable quality, a good price. So you decided to purchase something because it is an optimizing decisions, not maximizing, not just satisfying, but you're really happy with the decision or the purchase because that's reasonably good quality for a reasonably good price, right? So sometimes again, managers have to make optimizing decisions as well. Implementing decisions. So yes, you have analyzed, you know the problem really well, you have analyzed all the alternatives available for you, and now the question is implementing. So guys, it is not an easy decision as well, right? So when you're implementing, even though you have done everything right, this phase can be really tough for the manager as well, because things can change even at the implementation stage. So I have an example for you guys here, introducing a new ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning System. So for an example, SAP or Oracle Cloud or something like that. So you're trying to introduce this ERP system to improve organizational efficiency. To manage your supply chain or manage your organizational information, managing your financial system, managing your manufacturing system, sales system, or maybe everything. You're trying to use this system. And you need to ask some of the questions, or you need to plan these things as well. Determine how things will look when the decisions are fully operational, right? So you have a big organization, you're trying to introduce this ERP system across the organization, right? So how it will look like, do you think that you will have to lay some employees? What is the total cost of this project? And Do you have enough resources, enough information? Have people used this system before? And what sort of pros and cons is attached to this, right? So you have to analyze these things again. Chronologically order, perhaps with the flow or diagram, the steps necessary to achieve a fully operational decision, where to start, with department, supply chain or maybe finance department, manufacturing, sales department, or how to implement this. What is the chronological order? So you need to see your implementation plan on a board as well. So you will get enough information to see what will happen in the real life when you think about implementing this new ERP system. List the resources and activities required to implement each step as well. So step 1, step 2, step 3, what sort of resources available, expertise that you need, how many people, what sort of money, what sort of time frame, how do we go from one project to the other project or one department to the other department, how we're going to use this expertise as well, and your expertise and the experiences. So you need to have a really good picture of the full project before you implement. Estimate the time needed for each step. Assign responsibilities for each step to specific individuals. Who's going to handle it, how long will that take, who's going to handle it, how are we going to assess the success, all of these things. So it can be quite complex depending on the project at hand. So again, guys, pause here. Implementation stage is the most difficult stage. Sometimes you're analyzing data, you've got alternative, you decided on something, you know what alternative that you're going to go ahead with, but implementation stage, sometimes you're about to implement, but managers may decide, okay, this is not the right decision for us, right alternative for us. Go back to the drawing board to see what our next option is. So because it can be quite complex. So again, pause here to ask these questions before you implement. What problems could this action cause? For an example, what can we do to prevent if it is taking longer time, if you need lots of resources and your existing employees are already fully occupied? What sort of problems and how we can prevent? Can you outsource this project to someone else? So have lots of other things to deal with as well. So implementation stage, these are the questions that managers can ask. The next thing is, yes, you've implemented, then you need to evaluate the decisions. Have we made the right decision? Are we happy with the decision? Are employees happy after implementing the new ERP system? Is it working? Do we get enough analysis, enough reports? Can you make decisions with the reports that your new ERP system is providing you, right? Are your employees happy? If you implemented something, to improve customer satisfaction, are they happy? And do you receive positive feedback? If not, what has gone wrong? Do we have to go back to the drawing board to analyze the problem again? Why it is not still working? What sort of options? Where did we miss? Where did we go wrong? Why the solution is not good enough? Guys, I've given you a link here. How during COVID time as well, there were things in media to Ambulance Victoria, they're not responding on time, they're taking too long to respond to code 1 cases as well. I've given you a link here for you guys to explore this. Usually they need to respond in 15, if it is a code 1 category, they need to respond in 15 minutes. At least 85 cases in 15 minutes as well. So in order to improve these kind of performance indicators, organizations have made certain decisions and they are evaluating decisions as well. So I will use this example when you're talking about strategic planning and strategic planning chapter. Okay, but for the moment, these things are good examples. The best decisions. Can you remember a decision that you made and you thought, yeah, that was the best decision that you made? But after a while, maybe you regret, or maybe even after a while, you still think, that was the best decision that I've ever made in my life, these kind of things. So two types of decision making processes. One is reflexive or system 1 and system 2 thinking. If you deep dive into the content in your chapter, this is what you will understand. So sometimes reflexive decision making, these things done quickly without careful thought. These are kind of, emotional, intuitive, and instinctive. You make quick decisions. Say for an example, you want to hire somebody. You interviewed 4 people. You want to hire someone because you need to fill this vacancy quite quickly, and you're taking a reflexive approach even though you've interviewed someone. My intuition say, emotionally I say, we need to recruit the person A, right? I'll keep it arbitrary, person A, because I like that person, right? Intuitive, instinctive decision. So these are reflexive decision. Sometimes you're taking very reflective approach as well. We're analyzing, slow to make decisions. You're taking time. I know we need to fill the vacancy quite quickly, but we also need to make sure that we are taking very analytical, very slow, deliberate approach, because you need to recruit the best possible candidate, right? Otherwise it can be costly. So organizations are taking reflexive and reflective approaches to decision making as well. Sometimes it could be individual. There are some individuals, even though they analyze lots of things, but after analyzing everything, they make very intuitive or emotional decision. Right? We also talk about vigilance in decision making, a process in which a decision maker carefully executes all stages of decision making. You can be vigilant as much as possible, analyzing to make rational decision, but still in this volatile and complex decision making environment, your decision also there's a chance that your decision can go wrong. Okay, let me grab some water. Excuse me, guys. Right, barriers to effective decision making. So this can be quite in detail. I recommend you guys to pause if you like and come back to this section later if you feel a bit too much as well, right? Sometimes we think that we are making the right decision, but we are not, because we have biases, right? As individuals, we are human beings. We have our likings and dislikings. We have our own biases when we are making decisions. We make wrong decisions, right? We don't make effective decisions because of psychological biases. One of these things is motivated reasoning. Seeing what you want to see and making decisions based on more desired than the evidence, right? As a manager, I want to be the best manager. My motivation is to expand the business. That is my desire, right? That is my bias. It doesn't matter. I'm not listening to other people. I'm not looking at the evidence. I don't do market analysis. I don't look at the facts and figures about other companies are doing, what's happening in the business environment. My desire is to expand the business. That is my motivation. And then I go and open a couple of branches everywhere in Victoria. I may not be successful. It is not the right decision because I have motivated reasoning, right? That was one of my bias. I really was attached to my own motivation, which was I had the desire to expand the business, even though this is not the right context. So people make wrong decisions. Confirmation bias, accepting incoming information that fits what one already believes and rejecting what doesn't confirm, right? Say for an example, I believe in order to improve sales, the best thing to do is reduce price, right? I believe that is the best thing. I've got the confirmation biases. I'm not dealing with any other strategies. I don't pay attention to any other strategies. I'm only dealing with people who like to reduce price, right? I'm not worrying about other things. So this kind of confirmation biases are also there when we're dealing. We like to hear what we believe is right and reject all the other information. Other people would say you need to improve the quality, you need to move into a different supplier, and etc. I don't believe in those things. I just think we doesn't matter what, we need to lower the price. But what happened when you lower the price, you also will have to lower the quality of the production as well, or the quality of raw materials and etc. Otherwise you can't keep up with the profits. So rejecting other things, you're dealing with your own belief. It's a confirmation bias, and people make bad decisions because of this. Illusion of control, believe that one can influence events even when one has no control over what will happen, right? You can imagine. Say, for an example, need to improve organizational effectiveness, and I believe we need to change the ERP system. So it is illusional, right? Company is not doing well because we are not producing the right product, and there's no demand for that product as well. So that is the real reason. But my illusional control is we are not doing well because we don't analyze our data. We don't have enough data analysis methods, strategies to make right decisions. So I'm changing my ERP system. So that's kind of illusions. When people are in an illusion, they make wrong decisions as well. Framing effects, how we frame the problem as well as alternative, is another thing. Sometimes, again, as I said to you before, your problem could be, um, there's not enough demand for a particular product, but you identify this as a problem with your ERP system, how you frame it. So when you frame your problem wrongly, you make wrong decisions as well, right? It is very important that you identify and frame the problem accurately, otherwise you will make wrong decisions. Discounting the future, a bias weighing short-term cost and benefits more heavily than longer-term cost and benefits. You're dealing with short-term. Short-term, my objective is to promote to the CEO, to become the CEO in an organization, laterally move. So that is my objective. So my objective is to expand the organization. That is my short-term objective. I don't care. I'm not worrying about what will happen if I expand the business. What will happen in the long term? I'm not worrying about it, because my immediate need is to get my next promotion, convince the organizational managers or the leaders that we are expanding the business. It may have bad repercussion in the future because I didn't do a proper analysis. So discounting the future is another reason, and if it may link nicely with that example, may link nicely with this slide as well. Barriers to effective decision making. If you look at social realities, sometimes people make decisions, political decisions. People play politics in an organization, selfish decisions as well. Again, people make bad decisions. Time pressure, obviously we understand. Managers always they're trying to work conscientiously, but sometimes you make bad decisions because you always have time pressure, time, resources. These things make people, or the managers make ineffective decisions, lack of resources. Pros and cons of using groups to make decisions. Sometimes, guys, as an individual, you may not be able to make decisions because you're in a management group, you're in a leadership group, you as a team that you need to make decisions. So this can be applicable for your assessment group as well, right? There are pros and cons of group decision making. What are the potential advantages of group decision making? Larger pool of information. If you use everybody in your group, things like nominal group technique for decision making, which I mean by nominal group technique is giving the problem and asking everybody to quite silently write their solutions, and then present their solution one by one, not discussing anything, and then you can discuss these things later. So that way, everybody can contribute to the discussion, not just people who dominate the discussion. So nominal group technique is a really great way to generate pool of information and get everybody's ideas into the discussion as well. More perspectives and approaches. We have different backgrounds, different experiences, different expertise as well. So when you're in a group situation, you can find lots of different perspectives and approaches. Intellectual stimulation, you can bounce ideas with each other. Someone can be a devil's advocate, criticize all the ideas. So you can do a lot of intellectual simulations to make decisions. People understand the decision. People know the background, why we made the decision that we made, so it's easy to deal with. People will be more accepting when they involve in decision making process. People are committed to the decision because they have some kind of a stake or the ownership. Potential disadvantages. One person can dominate. As I said to you before, you can use technique like nominal group technique. Satisfying, yes, we are really happy with the decision, people don't want to put a lot of effort. So satisfying decision can be another disadvantage rather than optimizing or maximizing. Group thing, you don't want to hurt other people or create a negative environment because everyone is very happy and agreeable personalities, but you really don't want to be the devil's advocate and upset the group's apple cart. That's a group thing. Goal displacement, I've got a slide for that which I would explain. And social loafing. Social loafing is when someone in a group is not pulling their weight. These things are quite common in group situations. I explained what groupthink is in the previous slide, guys, but goal displacement is a condition that occurs when decision-making group loses sight of its original goal and a new, less important goal can emerge. Organization want to work on something, bigger goal, but as you discuss when you're in a group situation, because of everyone's interest, different people's perspectives, you may divert from your original goal and may perhaps work on a different goal altogether. That can happen. Goal displacement. See if this happens when you're working in your group situation as well. Brainstorming is a process where members generate many ideas as possible, and it is not a good idea to criticize people when you're brainstorming. In order to improve brainstorming, guys, these are the steps that you can do. These are the techniques that you can use as well. Groups are really great when they're working, right? And there are certain strategies that you guys can use to brainstorm effectively. Remember, criticizing ideas, not looking down, and dominating people, are not great strategies. Again, pause here, very self-explanatory, and try to understand what strategies that you can use to improve brainstorming. Okay, last slide. We also talk about and try to link whatever the things we discuss in this chapter to your career as well. Take charge of your career, strategically manage your job search. Strategic planning is quite important when you're managing your career. Think about what sort of industry that you want to get into and what your career goals are, what sort of a professional that you want to be, or maybe generalist, or maybe you want to specialize in a certain industry, what your career goals are. It's also very important, guys, and we will be talking about these things. Focus on your values, interest, and career goals. Sometimes when your career goals are not aligning well with your values and with your interests, your career goals or your career may not last long. You may have to change your career because you may not be happy employee. Create a plan to organize around your vision. What is your career vision and how are you going to achieve? How are you going to network? How are you going to stay positively? How are you going to work with other people? What sort of information, organizations, what sort of avenues that will be resources that will be helpful for you to plan your career as well. So think about these things. It's not a bad idea to plan for your career, so that will help you if you think about what you want to be, what sort of an industry that you want to get into at this stage, that will help you manage your career better and gather lots of information and do some networking as well. So that's it for today about managerial decision making. Next week, another interesting chapter. We will be looking at motivating for performance. Okay, thank you guys.